I'm going to give my thoughts on the Buffalo Bills and the performance that they had against the New England Patriots on the 17th or the 15th? No, it was Saturday. So that was the 15th of January. A fateful Saturday night, a rematch, the rubber match, after they had split on the road and at home, respectively, against the New England Patriots. And, there was a little bit of tension and a little bit of maybe some apprehension among, Bills fans and football fans in general, probably because, you look at the Patriots and you look at the Bills. The Patriots are kind of in a rebuilding state, in my opinion. I know they signed a bunch of people in free agency, so that could be somewhat of a valid point in people's defense, that they're not rebuilding. You know what I mean? But I mean, they have a rookie quarterback, and their team, in my opinion, is bare as fuck when it comes to just like straight up talent, like elite talent. Like on their entire team, there are probably two elite players. No, there might only be J.C. Jackson, and he's not even like an S tier player, right? I don't even know if they have a single S tier player on that entire team. And they were still able to fight for the AFC East against a Bills team that, in my opinion, has several S tier players, and just a much better team in general, man. Straight up, no diss to the Patriots, but the apprehension, I think, of a lot of people stems from the fact that the Bills lost to the Patriots against 50-mile-per-hour winds at home, and obviously they played in New England in what was generally a normal, lax weather day, and the Bills frankly dominated them. But again, it was going to be a weather factor because the temperature was like 10 below with wind chill, and it was single digits the whole game, and a lot of people were like, uh-oh. Patriots are going to just keep the defense out on the field the entire game and they're just going to win this. Like, they're just going to run this out. And I was probably 20 to 30% bought into that. And 70% sure that the Bills were going to walk away from this game. Maybe not easily, but they had won games by at least 12 points all season long, and it wouldn't surprise me if, they won this game, I don't know, 28-17 or, 28-14, something like that. Because the big caveat for me, the weather was bad, but there was no wind, so it was just cold. And personally, I don't think that has nearly the effect that, the wind does. But wow, a lot of people said that this was a near perfect game. And, I was thinking, right, Bills win 47-17, near perfect. They scored a touchdown every time they touched the ball. They had no fourth downs. The only time they didn't score was when they took knees at the very end, and they didn't get to a fourth down when they needed the ball down. So there were no fourth downs the entire game, no punts, no field goals, no turnovers. The only thing that stops it from being perfect, and that is fair, is they missed a field goal or an extra point, and they had one blocked. I think that's where it stems from. But, I mean, you look up and down, Mac Jones was, in my opinion, straight up not that bad. All right, Mac Jones played better. He played his best game against the Bills of the three matchups in total, because he was terrible at home in the game the Bills frankly dominated. And he didn't hardly play in the first matchup, obviously, right? But he wasn't that bad. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and the 2 touchdowns came, in garbage time. They were, down 30-3 when he scored his first touchdown. But still, he didn't play that bad. But the Bills' defense stopped the run, had 2 great forced turnovers. Both of the interceptions were fantastic. And they weren't even, in my opinion, that much at fault for the quarterback. It was just great defensive plays. The Bills' offense, I mean, Josh Allen had 4 incompletions. He was 21 of 25 with 5 touchdowns, and he added 60 more on the ground. Like, it was perfection on the side of offense, basically perfection on the side of the defense. And yeah, I guess the special teams was kind of sloppy because they did miss an extra point and had one blocked. But it was great, man. I mean, and a lot of people are saying that it's probably the best win the Bills have had in however many years, because the Patriots have dominated the Bills since Tom Brady came into the NFL. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that shares this sentiment, but I feel like it's not as popular as it should be, and I think it bears out. It's clear as day. You know, it's not necessarily the Patriots and Bill Belichick. It's Tom Brady. I think is really what it comes down to, especially when you look at this season and how the Bills literally did not allow anybody to throw on them and or have their defense falter, frankly, all season long, except the one game they played Tom Brady. He throws over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and treats the Bills defense like it's just a run of the mill unit. And also looking at Bill Belichick without Tom Brady in the few games that he didn't play, the Bills took care of business. So, but obviously it's a great win. People were trying to say after the Monday night game in which the Patriots won that they were back and it was their division, and the Bills, they had one, fluke COVID year with Cam Newton starting for the Patriots. And ultimately, no, the Bills still won the division and they absolutely destroy the Patriots in the wildcard round. But I will give my respects to the Patriots. This is straight up a rebuilding year. Mac Jones played like a rookie all season long with a good team. And honestly, they have a really good defense and they have some nice special teams play. As we saw bear out, because that was really the only bright side, was the blocked field goal or the blocked extra point. And they can run the ball. I really like Damian Harris, but he didn't do anything, bro. He did not do anything. He had like 9 rushes for 20 yards. So that was the best part, in my opinion. Say what you want, because that guy had fucking given us nightmares the last couple of games. But yeah, man, shout out to the Patriots. I know they signed a bunch of people in free agency, but I mean, they had a rookie quarterback. They got nothing. They have no skill position players. I don't care what you say. Hunter Henry is probably an A-tier tight end, but I mean, come on. You're going to need more than that. Kendrick Bourne, mid. Nelson Aguilar, mid. N'Keal Harry, trash. Like, they have nothing. They have nothing. They have no elite talent, because I don't think J.C. Jackson is an elite cornerback. I think he's a good cornerback who gets a lot of interceptions, but he's not on the level of like a Tre'Davious White or a Xavier Howard or somebody like that. I just don't think so. And I mean, same with Matt Judon. I think Matt Judon's a good pass rusher, really good pass rusher, but he is not on the level of a TJ Watt. He's not on the level of a Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa or anybody like that, But I respect the hell out of teams like that who are just scrappy, and it kind of reminds me of the Dolphins last year, I guess. And I mean, ultimately they won 10. They went 10-7. Dolphins went 10-6 last year. Probably should have made the playoffs. But I think the two of those teams really reminded me of each other, honestly, because they'll just kind of sneak up on you and beat you without you paying any attention. I mean, and the Patriots definitely had a good season, but obviously the way it went out against a division rival, absolutely getting smoked. I mean, that's rough. But no, I mean, offensively, it was a perfect game. Devin Singletary has been running the ball extremely well. He, I had talked about it before the playoff game, but he had really kind of set some distance between himself and Zach Moss and Matt Breida and whoever else the Bills are deciding to use out of the backfield. He's always averaged a lot per carry, but it's been a question of whether or not he can actually take the workload. You give him 10 to 12 carries and he gets 50 or 60 yards, it's pretty good, but he doesn't bust out that big one, for 40, 50 yards to get him up to 10 rushes for 100 yards, where they'll be like, all right, we're going to give you 10 more times so you can finish with 20 rushes for, 130, 140 yards. But he had like 15 or 16 rushes for about 90 yards, averaged over 5 yards a carry. And I really like him a lot, and he's no elite running back, that's for sure. And it would not be a bad thing for the Bills to get another running back in there. I think Zach Moss is done for. But I really like what he did. Stephon Diggs had himself a nice catch. It was just Dawson Knox is fantastic. Emmanuel Sanders had a touchdown. Josh himself, obviously he ran it, he threw it. I mean, it was just domination offensively. Defensively, they stopped Damian Harris. They forced Mac Jones to throw 2 interceptions. I mean, it was the Bills' best game of the season, obviously, by far. Before this, it was probably I would say maybe the Chiefs game was their best overall output, especially, based on the opponent. Because, the Patriots were a 1 seed, and there were people who were trying to say that the Bills' win wasn't impressive because it was against a rookie and Mac Jones. But they failed to realize that, Mac Jones, it's not his fault that the Patriots lost the way they did. Like, yeah, he did turn the ball over twice, but, both of those interceptions, it's hard to say that those were, majority on him. It was a great play by Matt Milano to tip it up into, I think it was Levi Wallace. But that throw to Kendrick Bourne, or to Nelson Aguilar, sorry, that Micah Hyde picked off. Come on. It was a great throw. It was just an insane play by Micah Hyde. That probably is the most impressive interception of the season. Certainly probably will go down as the most impressive interception of the playoffs. I just have a hard time thinking that somebody's going to make a better play. But, yeah, man, I just think that people who are trying to say that are just, they did not watch the game, and they still have some hate in their heart, and they just do not believe in the Bills, because I think it's such bullshit. 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Patriots were a half game out or were tied for the 1 seed, and Mac Jones has played pretty much just as good all season long as he has, the past couple weeks. So that sentiment is such bullshit. And, it is what it is. Buffalo versus everybody, they say. I've been seeing less and less, criticism and disbelief in the Bills, and more support, especially from like the media. I know a lot of people have been kind of on the Bills bandwagon, and they're a pretty likable organization and team at this point. At least it seems that way. Shout out to Mike Robb on Good Morning Football, and Kyle Brandt, who is the GOAT. He is like all in. He was at the Bills game. Also, Ryan Fitzpatrick was there too. Like, that was sweet. But that game was insane, and a huge win against a rival. Really buried them, frankly. Bill Belichick was fucking speechless, and it was just great. It was great. And then how sweet is it where you want to talk about 2 teams that the Bills are probably wanting to beat the most, right? The Patriots when they're having a good season, and the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. The 2-time defending AFC East champions, one of them including a Super Bowl championship. And how sweet is it that they get to play them right after the Patriots game, coming off with, if you want to say momentum is a thing, I don't know if it really is or not, frankly. I don't know. But they get the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round right after spanking up on the Patriots, a team that I'm sure, that game had a lot of emotional attachment. They're not going to admit it, but it definitely did. And now they get the Chiefs, the team who had Stephon Diggs sitting there and staring away at the Lamar Hunt trophy to whoever wins the conference. And, in the press conferences, Sean McDermott had said that, their main goal is to defeat that team. And, it was just, there was a feeling of like, damn, we got this close. We're going to face this team again at this point, with similar circumstances on the line. And we're going to be ready, and we're going to give it our fucking all. And unfortunately, I know a lot of people have talked about this feels like the AFC Championship game, and it just feels like whoever wins this divisional round game is probably going to win it running away against the Titans or the Bengals. And I would agree with that, But, the Bills had beat the Chiefs earlier in the season, and there are I feel a certain kind of way about that game for mainly 2 reasons. That was week 5. The Chiefs were already 2-2, and they were coming off losses to the Chargers and also to the Ravens, and they lost 5 games in the totality of the season, and they were 3-4 at one point. So they had a real tough stretch there at the beginning of the season, because I remember I want to say it was the very next week maybe, they got absolutely obliterated by the Titans. Or it might have been a week after, because I think they had like a bounce back game against like the football team or something. And then they played against the Titans and got obliterated. Because I think they started 3-4. I don't think they were 2-4. Because if they were 2-4, that means they would have rallied on 9 wins in a row. I don't think that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, they were struggling hard. And Patrick Mahomes was pedestrian / just bad for a vast majority of the season. I mean, people seem to kind of forget that this Chiefs team, up until Thanksgiving maybe, they were not very good. They were not very good because they had games obviously against the Bills, the Titans, against the Giants on Monday Night Football, and the Giants are one of the worst teams in the league, and if the Giants had even a shred of competence for the game of professional football, they probably beat the Chiefs, and I'm pretty sure that was on the road in Kansas City. You had the game against the Cowboys, where once again the Cowboys didn't do shit. And if they had even a little bit of competence, they probably win that game. The big one is the Packers game. That was such bullshit because, the Packers, if they had Aaron Rodgers, they would have won that game by 20 points probably, because I don't even think the Chiefs scored an offensive touchdown that game. They just got to play Jordan Love, and they blocked a punt, I think. And so there's a vast majority of the season where the Chiefs were just not good. And the big turning point for them was, I think they played the Raiders and they won 41-14. And from that moment on, it was all right, the Chiefs are back, because they went out, they destroyed the Steelers, they destroyed the Raiders again, even worse than before. I think they beat up on the Broncos, and it seemed like that Chiefs team that was kind of unstoppable and kind of like the team that had represented the conference in the Super Bowl the last 2 years was back. And they had a really close loss to the Bengals, and that felt like the Chiefs of old, in that, no team is going to go undefeated, but the games that they're going to lose are going to be close games against good teams. Because, up until the Super Bowl last year, and I don't know why people don't really talk about this, but, once the Super Bowl happened, you can't go back. But, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, through his first 3 full seasons, he did not lose a game by more than 8 points ever. So, I mean, him getting blown out was not par of the course. And early on the season, I mean, to the Ravens and to the Chargers, I believe, were pretty close fucking games, right? But obviously the Bucs in the Super Bowl blew them out. Bills, frankly, blew them the fuck out. But so the first reason why I'm a little nervous about this game is, like I said, the Bills did beat the Chiefs, but that was early on in the season, and frankly, the Chiefs are not the same team that they were week 5, just like the Bills aren't the same team they were week 5. No team is the same from week 5 to the divisional round of the playoffs. That's such bullshit. You cannot tell me throughout the course of the season, teams play poorly. And if that's not bared out throughout the season, then, I mean, this season especially, and I've talked about it a lot, every fucking good team in the playoffs at some point got their asses kicked by a team that was probably lesser than them too. The 1 fucking seed Titans got destroyed by Mac Jones and the Patriots. They got destroyed by the Texans. The Texans, who finished with a top 4 pick. The Packers got obliterated by the Saints, and it was all of this season. So that talk of we beat them earlier on the season, I just don't think that holds up. I don't think it does. Look at the Patriots. They beat the Bills, week 13 or week 12, whatever it was. And then they got obliterated. So that's, I don't put a lot of stock in that. And also, the second reason is, if you want to look historically, teams that have rematched against the Chiefs after beating them in the regular season have not fared well. They've gotten their asses kicked every fucking time, save for, I guess, the Bucs. The Bucs kind of the Bucs really flipped the switch on them, didn't they? Because I remember a couple years ago, Titans had that big win over the Chiefs, and the Texans had that big win over the Chiefs as well. Both of them in the regular season. That was 2019. And then those were the 2 teams they played on the path to the Super Bowl, and they beat the shit out of both of them in the divisional round and the championship. Obviously, there was that huge 24-point comeback. Absolutely ridiculous. They came back from 24 down and ended up winning by 20 points. nuts, like ridiculous. Like, how does that happen? Bill O'Brien, that's how. So, you know, I don't think, as much as I want to buy into the momentum and as much as I want to buy into the Bills played them before and they beat them, and, you know, yada, 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 this is the team that they want to have played all season long. You're still going up against the Chiefs. You're still going up against Patrick Mahomes, MVP, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl MVP, I think, even though I don't think he should have won it. You're still going up against Andy Reid, who has the pedigree. Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the league. One of the best with the ball, I guess. One of the shiftiest, and you know, I have a hard time saying he's one of the best receivers in the league, but he's a great player, obviously. Travis Kelce, the best tight end in the league, bar fucking none. And that defense, man, as bad as I want to say the Chiefs were in some of those games, you know, their defense, it was weird. They've had some different periods in the season there. At times where their offense and their defense was both trash. See the Bills game, see the Titans game. But they had moments in time where their defense was terrible, but their offense was great. You know, see Bengals game, see Eagles game. But then on the flip side, they had games where their offense was trash. You know, see Cowboys game, see Packers game. But their defense was really fucking good. You know, they have had a hard time with consistently having, you know, really good performances, probably against the Raiders. I would say. And I mean, they're coming off of a pretty big win over the Steelers, you know, similarly to the Bills, a blowout over a wild card team. But, you know, the Chiefs actually started really, really slow. Like the first quarter and a half, they were pretty abysmal, frankly, offensively. The Steelers' offense is just absolutely pathetic. Big Ben was terrible. By far the worst quarterback on any of the playoff teams, not even close. They just couldn't do anything. I don't even think the Chiefs' defense is that good, straight up. I just think that Big Ben and that offense was just bad. But they finally got it rolling. And Patrick Mahomes, despite, like I said, they did nothing for the first quarter and a half. He still finished with like 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. It was kind of amazing to me how they did that. And they scored like 6 touchdowns in a row or something. So they had a pretty comparable, you know, 2.5 quarters to what the Bills had the entire game against the Patriots. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to is how Josh Allen plays in this game, because, you know, the weather should not be a factor. It's going to be like 30-something degrees, which is par of the course in, you know, December and January, pretty much everywhere in the NFL, unless you're playing in a dome or in Florida or California. And Bills have seen this team before in the playoffs, so there's that little added motivation on top of, you know, beating them in the season. And they're facing them at the right time, you know, because they came off their biggest win in however goddamn long. They're really starting to be able to run the ball. Josh Allen's throwing the ball really well, obviously. They're not dealing with any injuries. And so I think that this game is going to be really fucking good. I think this game is going to be the matchup of the playoffs. In my opinion, the best game of the entire thing. You know, I know if the Bucs and Packers end up playing again, possibly that could take your cake, I guess. I could see that. But for me, I got to go with this one. It is the AFC Championship. I think whoever wins this game will win the conference. And then depending on who they play in the Super Bowl, to be determined. And so, because I don't think the Titans or the Bengals, frankly, stand a chance. I know that the Bengals beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but I just don't think that they're ready, honestly, especially with how they played against the Raiders. But, you know, the Chiefs, though, they're really starting to click, though. I mean, their defense is playing, you know, at times as well as it's played when it's had its best this season. The offense is really starting to click. And it's back to, in my opinion, the form that you saw in 18, 19, and 20. And so this is going to be a tough matchup, man. This is by far the hardest game the Bills have had all season long. You know, you want to say maybe against the Bucs when they were at full capacity? Possibly. But I think the Chiefs' offense is more explosive. And so, you know, the Bills have, every game they've won by 2 scores. throughout the entire season, right? So like that's been the mantra, and that's been something that I've been keen on. And so predicting a Bills win here, are they really going to win by at least 9 points? Yeah, I think they will. I think they're going to shock some people, but as much as I think the Bills could win, I don't know, 31-20 or 38-24, it wouldn't surprise me if they lost 34-31. It's one of those situations, right? Because they've won big and they've lost small. And it wouldn't surprise me if they lost small. But this is such a big game for them. They need this game so badly for the development of their franchise. Because I think ultimately it's a coin flip, straight up. You've got two really good quarterbacks. You've got two really good offensive, infrastructures. The Bills' defense, in my opinion, is much better than the Chiefs. But they're still the Chiefs. You still feel like they're going to find a way to force a fumble, or they're going to find a way to get after the quarterback with Chris Jones and Frank Clark and Melvin Ingram in Frank Clark's case, he only seems to do and perform in the playoffs. So it's like, but I got the Bills winning this game. I think that they're going to win it 38-27. It's going to be close, but you got to go with the two-score. You got to go with this two-score game. And if the Bills do lose this game, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Would you say the season's a failure? I don't know if it's a failure based on how they performed against the Patriots and they won the division again. But it's going to hurt again. It would be really crushing to lose to the same team that beat you and ended your season the year before in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs again. But I'm looking forward to it. I think that Bills passing defense, that's what's going to make the difference. Is a turnover here or there is going to really stem the tide. I know they're without Tre'Davious White, but based on their scheme and how, they aren't super reliant on a lot of man coverage and cornerbacks on an island, I think that they still can do this with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano and those boys. I think that they can win this game. And I'm confident, more confident that they will win this game than that they will lose this game. But I want to be realistic, and I don't want to set myself up for too much of a disappointment. So I'm going to take the Bills 38-27, and straight up, if they win this game, they pull it out. Whoever wins that Bengals-Titans game, I think the Titans are probably going to win that game straight up. I'm taking the Bills over the Titans. I know Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, but I'm taking Josh Allen in that pass defense over fucking Ryan Tannehill in that bonkers-ass mid defense in Tennessee. I'm just being honest with you. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. I don't really have a lot of concrete projections and, predictions, I guess, for individual parts of this game. But I think what it comes down to is turnovers. Whichever team commits the most turnovers, I think is going to lose the turnover battle by a significant amount. At least two. And that's going to be the deciding factor in the win. And if the Bills lose another close game, it's too bad. But anyway, 38-27, that's my prediction. Go Bills. If you win this game, you're going to the Super Bowl. Straight up.